Welcome to the High Value Sales Show of Eversprint.com. I'm Malcolm Louie, the managing member of Eversprint, and today we're speaking with Luther Garcia, the CEO of ECS Global Solutions, a provider of comprehensive energy efficiency solutions. Welcome to the call, Luther.
Thanks, Malcolm. Thanks for having me.
Luther, you grew your company's revenue from $7 million in 2014 to $18.1 million in 2017, a 158% increase. And in 2018, you hit around 28 million. Before we talk about how you grew your company so fast, can you briefly share what your company does beyond my quick intro and how your company differs from the competition?
Sure. We have two core businesses. The first business is a turnkey sustainable lighting business. So we do large-scale commercial LED rollouts on a national level. We do that for customers like Macy's, Citibank, JP Morgan Chase, Goldman Sachs, Avalon Bay, a number of large companies that have significant real estate portfolios across the country. That was the core business. It was a business we got into in 2010, and we actually bought ECS in 2013 when it was much smaller. So when we bought it our first year, we sort of did 2.8 million, and then we did 7 million the following year. Then, the rest of the numbers that you provided. About 2.5 years ago, we saw an opportunity and another shift in the marketplace, and we launched our building intelligence studio, which does building automation. So that is control systems for heating and cooling and various other mechanical devices in Class A commercial buildings. The focus of that business is primarily in New York, and that business is growing from basically 1 million last year to about 8 million this year. So that's a significant leap for 2019, actually. So that's basically an overview of what we do.
Great. And can you share how you differ from your competition, the ones that do the large-scale LED rollout that you do currently, and also the companies that also do the building intelligence, building automation?
Well, I would say that let's start with the building automation. That is a business that's basically dominated by 5 players, especially the top 4. JCI, which is Johnson Controls, Honeywell, Siemens, Schneider Electric, and then you have another company called Distech that is very innovative and up and coming. And basically, the incumbents have for years sold hardware in new construction to a lot of these real estate investment trusts or owners of real estate that require control systems and complex mechanical systems. Once you get that material in there, it's very expensive and very hard to pull it out. So very often, the biggest buildings and biggest accounts, their local branch, which they own, the manufacturer also owns, basically will manage and service the customer. But because their material used to be so hard to remove, they've been very expensive from a maintenance standpoint and from a customer service standpoint because it's so difficult for them to be removed. Most of them haven't done a great job with regards to servicing the customer. There's a big wave in the market going on right now where basically, the Internet of Things, I'm sure, we've all heard of that. It's happening in buildings. So things like fans and valves and, heating controls and all these sorts of things, air handlers, all these widgets and devices that are in these large scale commercial buildings are now being released with IP enabled, basically. So now that allows us to, at a greater level of control, you can actually manage and maintain these devices. So with that, along with that is an opportunity for analytics platforms, something called a digital twin, and all sorts of innovation that's going on in the market. And we're better positioned to take advantage of it because it's more important to us that the customer is serviced correctly. We can't afford mistakes because we're playing in the big leagues in New York City. So we can't afford mistakes. We can't have customers that aren't happy with our service because we're not, JCI or these other guys, Honeywell or whoever. So that's the first thing, and that's the first approach that we have. And that's an approach that's unusual to most of the building owners and developers because they're not used to it. The second thing is that the architectures for all these devices, for the controls of all these devices, there's a big technological wave. They're opening up. So, we have the technical expertise, which a lot of the older shops that sort of service these buildings don't have. So my background is, I've built a couple of other technology companies previously. So in terms of developing software, in terms of delivering, the networking infrastructure now that goes along with IP enabling all these devices, we are sort of cutting edge. So the combination of moving quickly, adapting to what the market is demanding, and servicing our customer, caring more about the service of our customer because we're hungrier and it's more important to us. This is what differentiates us from our competitors. And cracking open into the Class A building market in New York City is very, very hard. And we have been able to do that and currently have about 15 million square feet of some pretty iconic buildings that we're either under service contracts or modernizing. There's a very large new construction project that we've made it to as a finalist. We probably would be one of the smallest companies in the history of New York to actually win a project of that nature. So it's pretty exciting. So that's a combination of all those factors is what differentiates us, on the building automation or the building intelligence business. In the lighting business, it's a similar story. The lighting business is much older. It's been around for 20 years. It was a smaller business. We bought it. We took advantage of the adoption of LED technologies across the country. But that business model changed all of a sudden. It too used to be dominated by 4 or 5 major players, Acuity, General Electric, Philips, Sylvania, Ledvance, Osram, those guys are sort of the same name now. But their product became a commodity. A lot of cheap product came out of China, and all of a sudden, old loyalties that they had to their distribution channel, which were no longer working for them. So, we were more nimble and had the ability from a customer acquisition standpoint to go in and, really do the project development pieces, which would help really drive the selection of the materials. So that's the surveys and the site surveys and the, lighting audits and all that. When you have an opportunity to collect the data for an RFP for a bid, it puts you in a winning position, because you have, whatever the RFP is, you put it out there, but you may also have more data that's not in the RFP because you actually, visited all the sites. And sometimes this could be as many as, 200 different locations at the same time. So anyway, that's kind of, it's a similar recipe for both businesses that both have market dynamics that are changing rapidly, where there's, big incumbents are being challenged and their business models are changing. So it's an opportunity for a well-positioned company that's hungry and capable and able to take advantage of those circumstances.
Okay, got it. Now, can you elaborate what's meant by a Class A building?
Sure. Big skyscrapers. So Class A buildings that are 1 million square feet or more, basically. So think Chrysler Building, Empire State Building, Rockefeller Center, that kind of stuff.
Is it clearly based on square footage, or does it also have to do with the quality of the building?
It's really it's the size and everything that goes with that. So the size and complexity, cost, value, it's only there's only a handful of companies that can bid on those buildings in New York.
Okay, got it. Now, can you share what the 3 biggest drivers were of your sales growth over the past 4 years when you grew from 7 million in 2014 to about 28 million? I know you touched upon it a little bit already, but maybe we can review those again and maybe dive a little bit deeper into them.
Sure. So I guess from a customer acquisition standpoint, we really focused on, look, it takes the same amount of effort to close an $100,000 deal as it does to close a $5 million deal. It really does. So in terms of investing your time and targeting customers, you get a much better return by targeting, in our case, it was customers with large real estate portfolios or a presence in multiple markets. So that's the department stores, that was banks, real estate investment trusts. So we focused our effort towards things that would give us the greatest return. In the lighting business, there is no recurring revenue. So we're always chopping wood. So we have to have a deep pool of buildings to upgrade. The second thing was partnerships that could provide indirect sales referrals and revenue opportunities to us. Specifically, we really developed our partnerships with GE Current, with CBRE, for example, Cushman Wakefield, and they brought us into a lot of opportunities. So when you can do that, get either indirect channel sales or go after big accounts with multiple opportunities, then you can grow your sales quickly. On the building intelligence side, it's a little bit different because there are service contracts that last a long time. So there's recurring revenue there. There are tenant fit outs, so there's recurring revenue there. There's modernization because you have the market dynamic of the internet, the IoT wave that's just beginning to sweep over everything. And then, of course, we're developing technology to take advantage of that and capture, add more value, deliver more value to our clients, and add even higher margin and more recurring revenue for us. So, that's the secret for both of those, why we've been able to grow them to the way we've been able to.
Okay, so on the lighting side, the LED side, it's one is just focusing on larger accounts directly, where you can get multiple sales out of it, and the second one is through partnerships with the likes of with the like of CBRE and Cushman Wakefield. And then on the building intelligence side, I know you mentioned how there are a lot of the dynamics that are changing there, but could you clarify what the drivers were of the sales growth? When you talk about growing your sales in one market, the New York City market, from 1 million to 8 million, I believe, in a span of a year.
Yeah, there was a major manufacturer that was having issues with one of their major clients in the New York City market. We hired some people from that manufacturer that were well regarded and that happened to have a relationship with that, with that customer. They gave us the opportunity to go in and help service them because there were issues with the way they serviced them. We did a great job, and then we ended up owning that customer. And being armed with the ability to sell products and solutions from one of the major manufacturers in that market. I mentioned who they were earlier, as well as being armed with one of the biggest real estate investment trusts as our customers, all of a sudden gave us an opportunity to really grow this out. Obviously, we were able to leverage the assets and the balance sheet of the lighting business so that we could, get on the approved vendors list and play on that level. And we could also, invest in and build the resources of that new business unit. And we hired people, some of the best people in the industry. So, it was really a unique look. The bottom line is sometimes you have to either maneuver yourself into or identify a unique set of circumstances that you are in a position to take advantage of. So timing and luck, really. Right.
Yeah. I mean, for at least on the building intelligence side, seems like you were the right company at the right time to take advantage of the hiccup that the manufacturer had, and that kind of gave you the opportunities for the future ones. Okay, great. So on the lighting side here, and now you talk about the same effort to close a $500,000 deal as opposed to a $10 million deal, but isn't the sales cycle much longer for the larger deals?
Well, that's good and bad. It is, but so our pipeline on the lighting side is about, $80 million. So the good thing about that is we have a pretty good close rate. So you're working on these deals, you're always working on rollouts, and you know what the rollouts are. You can kind of plan your revenue and plan around that. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So we have visibility into, we can kind of predict what our, 12 to 18 months out. That's pretty good. We know what our revenue should be for, projects that we've been developing maybe since last year or whatever.
Yep.
so that's good. I would say that on the other hand, the other thing is if you did have a certain amount of churn with some of those kind of deals, the $100,000, $200,000 deals, those could help as well from a cash flow standpoint. But it just depends on where you are in terms of your cash flow. We've been able to secure a pretty good credit facility, so while it's always a challenge in a business like lighting, we have the resources we need to be able to support those kind of deals, that kind of growth.
Right. Okay. Got it. And for the second driver on the lighting side, you talk about the partnerships. Can you talk about how you were able to start forming those partnerships?
Well, we've been forming them, for decades. We've got, like I said, we bought ECS in 2013, and ECS is 22 years old. So the lighting business is that old. The building automation business is basically 2.5 years old. It's something that we incubated and created in that lighting business. So, there's just, when we looked at acquiring that business, we felt that there was infrastructure, knowledge, track record, but also customer assets and, that we call partnerships, put them in the same bucket that we could leverage and really use that to grow. So then it became a matter of, well, we have credibility with, these customers or with these companies. What do we need to do to, allow us to scale up and be able to handle larger volumes of work for them? So, that became, growing, expanding our staff, really, adding efficiencies into our processes. And we developed some technology to do the project development, the data collection that's involved for all the lighting audits and surveys. So, we position ourselves to be a more valuable partner that could do bigger and larger projects for them. And then as we got opportunities to prove ourselves, we really, knocked it out of the park and developed those relationships to the point now where we continue to get a volume of new customers from them every year.
Fantastic. Now on the LED side, you talk about leveraging the assets of the lighting business to get on the approved vendor list. Can you give a little bit more detail about what the approved vendor list is all about and what's typically required to get on those lists?
Yeah, so if you like the Class A building, let's give an example. Let's say a company like, let's say a very large real estate investment trust that, there's one in particular, they own 196 million square feet across the country. They own 30 million square feet in New York City alone. If you're going to be an approved vendor on that list, then, you have to be able to have you're going to subcontract some work. You're going to have to be able to purchase and have credit lines to purchase materials from the relevant manufacturers for that work. So, lighting business, because it was established, we had a very strong D&B rating. We had a good balance sheet. So we could acquire, we qualify for, lots of credit. We had a track record of having, completed large, complex projects. So, starting a new business out of that, we were able to leverage all of that track record for the new business. And then, because we could hire a good team quickly, build a good team that could execute quickly, then we could go after the big customers and leverage all of that track record and financial strength from the lighting business into opening up new doors for our new business, the building automation business. Do you see what I mean?
Yep.
So all of a sudden, it makes it a lot easier if you are a $20 million company applying to be on an approved vendors list versus if you're a company that has $1 million or less in sales. They might not even consider you. You see what I mean?
Yep, definitely. So it sounds like these approved vendor lists does keep out new competition, at least new startup competition.
Yeah, sure. It's a barrier to entry that can be significant,
Yeah. All right. And can you also recap again that key event on the building intelligence side where you were able to, you mentioned about how a manufacturer somewhere along the process had some issues of some sort. Can you give some more details about that and how you were able to learn about it and how you're able to capitalize on it?
Yeah, we hired a team, some guys, just coincidentally, because we wanted to build this business, and we were able to find someone that, that was worthy, that we could build, invest in and build a team around. We felt like we found someone who was young, but that had the knowledge, connections, everything that was required to really build a new business around. So that's the first thing we identified. We started building the team.
Was it a sales team and you bought people in their Rolodex, or was it?
No, it wasn't a sales team at all. Quite the opposite. It was an execution team. So it was a team that had the skills to be able to do, design drawings, estimation, service engineers. They're engineers, most of them. We have technology programmers. There's quite a bit of sophisticated infrastructure that you have to have. Once we had that team, we were able to sign up the manufacturer that team came from, right? Because we were already certified on that line because we hired like 5 guys to start.
Right. Okay.
Right? Now we've grown to like 15 guys on that unit. We have about 50 people total in both businesses, maybe 55. Anyways, so that was the first thing, is we were the first new channel partner that they certified in the New York market for that manufacturer in like 5 years. There aren't that many players that are here. So then the manufacturer, all these manufacturers, whether it's Siemens or Schneider or Honeywell or Johnson Controls, they all have their own local branches for service. Now, what we've noticed is that they're really good at making hardware and technology, but they're not necessarily that great at service. That's the truth. So that manufacturer had a very large customer at some very iconic buildings in New York that, quite frankly, they were doing a poor job of servicing. So they didn't want to lose the hardware. So the corporate, not the branch, said, give these guys a chance to go in and see what they can do. So we were able to go in and provide a level of service to that client that the big manufacturer and their branch could not, largely because of a culture that basically takes advantage or takes for granted the fact that they have their customer, because it used to be hard to rip that material out. But because of this internet, this IoT wave, all these buildings now are modernizing. So all of them are vulnerable to having their equipment be replaced. And there's all sorts of new technology now to whereby, you don't necessarily need their software to manage their controllers and things like that. So they're all very vulnerable now to, being replaced. So for us, having the track record and capability to do all this work at that sort of level and level of complexity and size, having the team a world-class team that can execute, having the ability to create demand-driven technology that the customer wants, and puts us in a tremendous opportunity to have captured a tremendous amount of business. And this door is just opening, and we're just getting started.
Yeah. Now, for the large manufacturer that didn't want to lose the end customer, right? I assume it's a real estate investment trust that goes well beyond New York. There's exactly. They own. Now, did they just reach out to your new team that you just formed, or was it the other way around? You kind of heard some rumblings and you...
No, I think the customers said, we don't want to deal with your branch, your service branch anymore. Mm-hmm. And they were upset. They were very unhappy. So they made a decision. They said, okay, we'll open it up to their channel partners. There's only a few of them in the New York market, and we were a new one. We were a brand new one.
Okay.
And we did a better job than the other ones did. So we were selected by the REIT. And then all of a sudden, for us, our priority was servicing the REIT. Mm-hmm. And then next thing you know, we end up owning the customer, not the manufacturer. It wasn't intentional. And of course, we have a good relationship with that manufacturer. Don't get me wrong.
Yeah.
But that's what ended up happening. I say this, a customer in many ways is like your wife, right? If you pay attention to your wife, if you show her you care, if you love her, treat her with love, then she should love you back, right? And it's the same thing for the customer. So from our standpoint, we seem to care more than what others were showing them. And that was something they hadn't seen before. Our response times were, hours or, as opposed to weeks or
right.
It changed and we have the competence and the capability to fix and solve their problems. And then it's like all of a sudden, then you become the customer's trusted advisor.
Yeah.
And they give you more and more opportunities. And, that's kind of how we find ourselves in this. So it was an extraordinary set of circumstances that we were positioned to take advantage of, and we're making the most of it now, and we continue to take advantage.
Yeah, fantastic. Did the REIT consider the other 3 channel partners as well, or did they just start with you first and then you ran with it?
I think that they talked to some of the others, but we impressed them, so they went with us first, and then they never looked back.
Fantastic. Now, can you share what buildings in New York that people would know about that you are currently doing work on or have done work in?
I would say 3 of the 10 most famous buildings in New York.
Oh, yeah, cool. And when you say that, you're talking about
it's a total of about 15 million square feet.
Okay, now, are you talking about the entire building or just talking about bits and pieces of the building?
The entire building.
Very cool. So you're involved with the lighting, the AC, doors opening and closing, all that stuff.
Yeah, it's really, okay, so it's controls. So most of this is on the building automation side, but we are cross-pollinating and bringing the lighting business into these opportunities as well, where it's relevant.
Mm-hmm.
Also, there's a big movement with a lot of these REITs. You know, I don't know if you ever heard of Regus back in the day, but before WeWork, there was Regus, and then WeWork came out. And then these REITs kind of were looking at WeWork, and they were just saying, hey, wait a minute. I see what you're doing. This basically they're leveraging their real estate assets, and they're trying to make them more profitable and generate more revenue out of them. Flexible office space, flexible working, and even potentially living spaces, like a WeWork model. So they're like, we can do that too. So there's a big movement for these guys. There's a couple of them in particular. I could tell you Tishman Speyer has one called Studio, and CBRE has one as well. Another service, I can't remember what they named theirs. But these guys own hundreds of millions of square feet. So for them, it's pretty easy to have this flexible working space and to convert it and make it high tech. So we're sort of, we have an opportunity to be partnered with them, with these kinds of activities where we're converting, entire floors in a lot of these buildings to be flexible workspace. And there's a lot of new technology and ways that you can make them smart, and ways where they can basically offer their tenants more value and also charge for that extra value, whereby they can, basically leverage more value or squeeze more value out of their real estate assets. So there's all these sort of forces that are sort of coalescing in this space: the Internet of Things, sustainable energy, and then making everything smarter. What can you do with that? How can you?
Right.
For example, simple things like tying your key card access into lighting and heating and HVAC controls. All of a sudden when you walk in and you walk into the lobby and you put your key card in to get into the building so that you can get into the elevator bank that's going to take you to your floor. We can integrate that with the lighting control system so that we'll say, okay, now let's turn this guy's lights on in his office. Let's make sure the temperature is set to the standard that was chosen for that kind of stuff. It makes it a good experience for the tenant, and it makes it as efficient as possible to operate for the building owner. So it's things like that.
Right. And then I imagine a lot of it's also creativity driven too. I imagine there's some applications that you haven't even thought of yet that
it's so cool. It is so cool. And because we have the ability to develop software, and we've got a great chief technology officer, someone that I've known for 20 years. Again, my background comes from that world. And we have we're inside the building. We have customers asking us to build stuff, plus we're the ones servicing them. So we're also a consumer. So that's why I say we have really a demand-driven development approach. So we're building stuff that we know we're going to monetize because our customers are asking for it, or we can bundle it and make our service better. There's a lot of app guys coming out of Silicon Valley who are building all these apps, but it's really hard for them to get them in the building. Whereas we're in the building and we can build the apps. So we're actually really well positioned to take advantage of that. So all of a sudden, an analytics company now, if we have an analytics app, all of a sudden you're looking at a company that could be trading at 30 to 40 times EBITDA versus, companies that aren't, which, maybe a BMS company, maybe you're looking at, a really good one, maybe 8 to 12 times EBITDA, maybe 15 if you're really growing. So it's a big deal.
Yeah. Can you share some of the leading edge, maybe bleeding edge applications, ideas that your team has been creating for the buildings beyond what you just shared of, turning lights on and off and heating on and off? Something.
Yeah. So one of the big things is there's different frameworks out there. So some of the heavy lifting on this it's new, but it's a lot of it's been done. I'm not going to get into specific frameworks we're using, but for example, there's something called a digital twin. So the whole idea is it's almost like you have the building in your pocket, right? So you have a digital three-dimensional representation of the building that is actually plugged into all the relevant systems that are important to you, getting real-time data. And then you can interact and you can do all kinds of things with that data, but you can also, have machine learning and artificial intelligence so that you can really solve problems in a way that used to require a lot more time and cost to identify and then solve. So the digital twin is a really big deal. It's something that we're working on. It's something that we've been asked to work on. And it's a huge gap in our industry. It's kind of something, we're not the only ones, I'm sure, that are working on it, but it's pretty exciting.
Very cool. So something like this might be useful if I just, one of the problems I've seen, like when the company I used to work with used to do these major conferences, right? And the elevators would get totally backed up, right? I imagine now that you can collect more data, you can probably analyze that and find better ways of redirecting people.
Well, I mean, again, I live in a building surrounded by skyscrapers. I lived in I'm always in a skyscraper surrounded by skyscrapers, right? So the new elevators, a lot of them, they're just really smart. So you don't even push the floor. I mean, you push what floor you want to go to, and it tells you what elevator to get into.
Right.
You just get into that elevator, and it's a much smarter elevator than just going in and trying to push a button. The elevator algorithms are pretty funny. I don't know. A long time ago, we were looking at that kind of stuff when I was doing programming, a long time ago. But that was more for fun than anything else. But yeah, no, everything's just smarter. And the smarter things get, the more ideas there are to leverage them and create new things that add new value for users, owners, whatever. We live in an exciting time.
Yeah, definitely. For 2019, what are the most interesting sales opportunities that you see?
Oh, man. Well, what we're trying to do is have our analytics platform, our software platform, to a point where we could take a strategic investment, not so much because we need the money, but that would maybe with a manufacturer, one of the big manufacturers, that would open up an opportunity for our platform to be bundled with their offerings, so that they could, since a lot of them are struggling with service, perhaps if they put it through their branches or their distribution channels, we could sit back and be the platform that could help them service all these buildings. So that's kind of a strategic direction that we're going. So we're looking at that. There's some new construction projects that are very, very large that we were really fortunate enough to find ourselves really being seated at the table. So that's really exciting. In a place called Hudson Yards, which is in sort of the west side of Manhattan. Massive billions and billions of dollars are being spent on putting up all these huge new buildings there. We have an opportunity there. On the lighting side, I think there's about 70 department stores with Macy's that we're looking to start upgrading, and another several hundred Citibank branches. So there's some pretty exciting sales opportunities. So we're pretty excited about that. There's also a couple of new REITs that we seem to have sort of got our foot in the door on the building automation side. So, when you win these service contracts, they're fantastic. You're there until they throw you out, but it could be decades. It's exciting when you have predictable recurring revenue. It's a beautiful thing.
Yeah, it is. It allows you to do much better planning on so many different dimensions.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So what are the challenges you see in 2019 to do all the things that you mentioned?
The challenge is that we're going after the most coveted customers and properties on the market. We've been disruptive within the channel of the manufacturer that we've been dealing with. When you're disruptive, people come at you. So, we're going to have to keep our head on a swivel, and we're going to have to keep carrying more than anybody else. And we're going to have to be smarter than our competition, because our competition is so much bigger than we are. So we have to be smarter than they are. So we just don't have much of a margin for error.
Right. Now, getting into more specifics in terms of finding a new opportunity, I know you're targeting the Class A buildings, the bigger REITs that have properties throughout New York. But I imagine at one point you would prefer REITs that have properties throughout the nation, so you can do work there.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Now, is that a pretty short list of REITs, or is that pretty big and you need to?
It's not a long list. They're the ones that we're targeting. They're huge though. They own tens of millions, if not hundreds of millions, of square feet across the country.
Okay.
One of them right now, our best one, owns 196 million square feet across the country. That's our best customer.
Right. Now, how do you go about engaging these people? How do you find them? How do you initiate contact?
Very well. So these are big buildings, and there's an ecosystem of people who manage them that work for the REITs, and so sometimes they go to new buildings. That's one way. The other way is again at this when you sit down and build a big skyscraper, there's quite a few people at the table. There's a sponsor, which is the REIT usually, and then there's these large construction companies. A company like Turner Construction, for example, some of these are the best construction companies in the world. And, once you have a seat at that table, and if you could prove yourself and do a great job, then they will bid other work out to you. They might use you again. They might call you in for other opportunities. So it's a migration of people that you maybe we were running one building, for example, for one REIT, and we had another. This is how we got an opportunity at CBRE, really, and the person liked what we did there, and then he went to CBRE, and we were able to get an opportunity there right away. He's got a building that he wanted to upgrade and modernize. So migration of people, and then just as you keep doing work and sort of playing in this league, you get those opportunities. And the last way is bid and spec. So we have a ecosystem of what you call MEP firms, mechanical, electrical, plumbing. And these are big contracting companies that bid work out. So it's an ecosystem that in the New York construction market, whether it's retrofitting or new construction. And so, we get opportunities, a lot of bid requests sent our way. So I think expanding that base of MEPs that we work with, maybe, potentially expanding the amount of products that we carry. There's some things that we can do to increase, the incoming volume.
Right. Now, what does your salespeople do to find new business? What's their process?
What salespeople?
You have no salespeople?
Yeah, we don't really have too many salespeople. We have 2 salespeople in the lighting business, and really 1 in this business now. Now we're probably going to hire, and that's what I'm talking about. We'll probably hire 1 or 2 that will bring on, some more MEP firms so we can get some more bid spec stuff. But, what we've done is I just recently returned from safari in the Serengeti, and you'd watch these. It was incredible. You'd see these pride of lions, and the lions, their favorite meal, because to feed a pride, it takes a lot of energy to hunt. So they sleep for 20 hours. They're really active for 4 hours a day, and they usually hunt at night. So what they preferred, their favorite, was a buffalo, because a buffalo could feed an entire pride for a week. So from our standpoint, it's getting elephants, and then when you get the elephant, you can feed on that elephant for a long time. So going after the really big customers, once you land them, then your effort becomes more of customer management, developing the opportunity within that customer. So one customer that has 100 buildings is like 100 customers. You see what I mean?
Yep. So your growth now is really more focused on developing and working with your current customers as opposed to finding new ones?
It is a combination of both, but for us, we haven't even begun to tap all of the opportunity that we currently have, just with what we have on the table now. So for us, it's more a matter of investing in the resources necessary to continue and develop and deliver excellent service and quality work to this customer, so we could get more.
Yeah. Because
So
like
it's
you
more
say,
about building our opportunities so we can scale for the opportunity that we already have, the opportunities that we already have.
right.
It's a great position to be in.
Yeah, because like you said, right, you're doing work for Citibank, and if you got hundreds of branches, right, that you can do work
That's
on.
true. Yeah, that's on the lighting side. Absolutely.
And then the REIT side, these guys own more than just one building, right? So
Yeah, they have hundreds of millions of square feet they own.
yeah,
And it's not just one, but there's one that's our best customer, but there's some others as well. So
yep.
It's pretty exciting.
So
as these buildings modernize, we find ourselves we might distinguish ourselves a bit from our competitors.
right.
There's a lot of the things that we've already talked about. So that's our hope.
Yeah. Now you mentioned before about hiring one or two people to bring in more MEP firms. Are these companies difficult to reach out to?
Not. I mean, it's really, look, business is all about relationships, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, this is New York. You don't just reach out to people. You got to know people. You got to know somebody who knows someone. So, bringing in people who have relationships that they've developed over 10 years, 5 years, whatever it is, that's the key. They can bring in some new MEP firms. It's about trust.
Yeah.
I trust if I send this bid out to you, that you're not going to screw us over, make me look stupid, give us a bad price, or screw us over, that kind of thing.
Right.
So that's what this is. New York. New York is pretty unique, and this is New York in the construction market, which is really unique. So bringing technology into that and all the dynamic changes that are happening to it are very interesting, and we are very disruptive, and we enjoy being disruptive. So that's kind of what our job is to continue to be disruptive, but in the right way.
Right. Okay. 3 last questions for you. If you had a billboard on a fast-moving freeway turnpike in the Northeast, what would your billboard message say? And keep in mind that people who are driving by these billboards on a freeway, they only have about 6 seconds to read it, if at all. So what's your 6-second message?
What is my 6-second message? You know what? That's a really good question. The way we acquire customers, we don't do it by advertising. We don't really do it by marketing that way. So I don't even think of it that way.
Right.
It's a really good question, but I really don't have an answer. But you know what? If you don't mind, I'd love to think about it and maybe email it to you if I come up with a good one.
Yeah, definitely. No, I mean, just from going through what you shared, it's, there's some good ideas that one can come with, right? The disruption is probably a good theme to think about. That's exactly what you guys are doing. So
yeah, it is. It really, really is. In an old, very established market with some big and old and very established players with multi-billion-dollar balance sheets.
Yeah,
that's basically what we're disrupting.
Yeah, you maybe the message might be a better way to turn off lights.
Better way to no. I mean, okay. So I was sitting in a construction meeting the other day, and they're talking about all sorts of things. You're talking about sensors for irrigation, leak sensors, heating sensors, automatically locking terrace doors, so that people don't go out and jump out. All sorts of intelligence. Integrating security systems, card key accesses with all the control systems. I mean, eventually having things so that in the future you could have power over Ethernet, and then it's cheaper to run electrical cables and all this kind of stuff.
Yeah.
Each one. I mean, it's so big and so complex. I can't even get my head around it.
How about this one? A building in your pocket.
Yes. Around the digital twin. How would you like to have a building? Yeah, Steve Jobs once said, 1,000 songs in your pocket.
Yeah. You're going to do a building. How about 100 buildings in your pocket?
Yeah. How about a city in your pocket?
Oh, yeah.
Absolutely. So, and that's the whole idea, is that the digital twin is also meant to be, across a portfolio. So, it's, each building and each thing in that building, and each device, and all the way down to the device level. It's really exciting time to
Yeah, it is.
be in this business. So people talk about the Internet of Things, and I don't know how many people are doing what with it, but I can tell you it's a real thing. It's a real thing, and it is a big wave, and it's not only coming, it's here.
Yeah. And it's just a matter of coming up with ideas. I mean, there are some ideas I'm sure that I haven't even thought of. And then once I hear about it, I'm going to be going, wow, that's amazing. Why didn't I think about it first?
Man, I love that. A building, I'm the one who said it, but then you reminded me. A building in your pocket. That's what's on the billboard.
All right. Awesome.
Cool.
And my two last questions for you. Who are your ideal customers or partners? And what's the best way for them to reach you and your team?
Our ideal customers is anybody who owns large portfolios of real estate, or if you could be retail chains or whatever. Basically, large portfolios of real estate. And the best way to reach us is just to go to our website, ecs.global, or you can email me, luther.garcia@ecs.global.
Thanks for joining us today, Luther, and sharing how you accelerated your company's high-value sales.
It was a pleasure, Malcolm. I enjoyed the conversation.
I did too. And that building in the pocket, that might be the title of this interview when I post it on my website.
Building in your pocket. Yeah, someone will probably rip it off now, but that's okay. I dig it. We have a record of who created it.
Yes, it'll be here first.
That's right.
We've been speaking with Luther Garcia, the CEO of ECS Global Solutions, about his company's rapid growth. For interviews with other fast-growing, high-value sales companies, or to learn how we can accelerate your firm's high-value sales through automation, visit eversprint.com.